Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. Of all the architects in Detroit, one of the best known may be Albert Kahn. He designed some of the city's most treasured buildings: the Belle Isle Conservancy, the Fisher Building, and the Detroit Athletic Club. Even still, a lot of people don't know that much about Kahn. They don't know how or why his work changed architecture in Detroit or any of his design preferences. Chris Meister is the author of the new book, Albert Kahn's Daylight, An Architect Reconsidered. He spoke with the Metro's Sam Corey about why much of Kahn's work prioritized natural light.
So you wrote this book in part because you were appreciating the Detroit Belle Isle Aquarium and you wanted to save it from closing. That building, of course, did close in 2005, but was reopened about a decade later. Albert Kahn designed the aquarium in the late 1800s. But I wanted to know from your perspective, what makes it so special? Why did it inspire you so much as to write a book about Albert Kahn?
It was just a unique structure. No other city could boast something like this. And so it seemed a shame to walk away from it. You know, there were many volunteers who were part of the grassroots effort to keep it from closing. And then once it did close, to get it to reopen. I figured that I had the skill set to do the research to try to find a historical rationale for saving it. So that's when I started research with just the idea of focusing on the aquarium, and then I soon discovered some people knew that it was an Albert Kahn building at the time. It wasn't that widely known throughout the city, and part of it was Kahn himself never really talked about it too much. So as I started exploring why this would be, why this gap in his portfolio, I discovered other gaps as well, and before I knew it, I was taking a fresh look at his entire career.
In terms of Kahn's work, he had a special focus on daylight, which of course is part of the title of your book. That was true of the Belle Isle Aquarium. That's got a dome that lets a lot of natural light in. And you write in your book that in the early 1800s, physicians were noting that a lack of exposure to sunlight was negatively impacting people's physical and mental health. And I'm wondering why you think Kahn tapped into this understanding and built structures like the aquarium and others that had so much natural light pouring into them.
Well, I think it all came from his experience with the Belle Isle building. If you look at his work previous to that, I mean, there's some real nice structures that were done, but as far as window space, they were pretty much in line with other buildings. And then after the Belle Isle Aquarium and Horticultural Building, that's when he starts expanding the windows, and I believe it was part of an educational process that he absorbed working on the aquarium and the conservatory.
Do you think he got so much positive feedback from the aquarium and the design of it that he continued on with that? What do you think inspired him to continue that trend?
I think it just met his sense of moral duty. With the Belle Isle structure, the architect was responsible for keeping the fish and the plants alive. Whereas most other architecture, you're just providing temporary shelter for the people come and go out of. But especially when you started designing factory buildings, it became a case of, these people are going to be here inside this building for 8 hours a day, that there was a moral obligation. And plus, there were employers, some of the industrialists. First of all, they were sympathetic to the health and well-being of their employees. They also knew that natural light provided the best lighting for working, especially for precision machining.
Plants seem to like sunlight, daylight. Maybe people do too.
Exactly.
Kahn eventually came to design a lot of big, important industrial buildings in Detroit, as you note, including the Packard plant and the Ford Highland Park plant. What drew him to these kinds of projects? I'm wondering, is that where the money was at the time with these big industrial projects, or was there something else about it that he happened to like, that he gravitated towards them?
At various times during his career, Kahn would say that he was just doing the work that no one else wanted. But actually that wasn't true in the 1890s and 1900s. Architects in Detroit were very proud of their industrial work, but the work got harder as production got more complicated. A lot of the architects started, basically gravitating away, whereas Kahn just had an aptitude for it. And he was self-taught as an architect, but he was also self-taught as an engineer. And so he basically thrived on the challenge. He really enjoyed the rewards of seeing a building go up quickly and then being able to stand back and watch people working and earning money, in those buildings. So that was an appreciation that he had that some of his fellow architects did not.
This is The Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio. I'm Sam Corey, speaking with Chris Meister. He's the author of the new book, Albert Kahn's Daylight, An Architect Reconsidered. We're talking about Albert Kahn and his influence on the city of Detroit and on architecture around the country and the world. Some of the old buildings that we have around Detroit are really just stunning. Like, they are striking. And you see this across America too, but we have it here, the Fisher Building, the Belle Isle Aquarium, the DIA, the Penobscot. We seem to have invested a lot more in the design and architecture of buildings in the late 1800s, early 1900s in a way that we don't quite seem to do now. And I guess I'm just wondering what you make of that and why you think that is.
Well, there was a lot of civic pride at the time, and there was also enormous fortunes being made here. And the people who were reaping those benefits wanted to give back to the community. Mm-hmm. And there's, in part, there was ego-driven too. They wanted to, show off that they had the means to do this.
Chris, your book is Reconsidering Albert Kahn as part of the title. And I do wonder what kinds of misconceptions people have about the architect that you're trying to correct.
Over the years, historians have been forced to rely on interviews that Kahn gave with journalists. And quite frankly, Kahn was interested in promoting his business. Mm-hmm. So he would talk about his experience with Henry Ford, for instance, and Henry Joy of Packard
plant,
which, we're talking about the low-end vehicles and the luxury Rolls-Royce vehicles. So, basically he was hitting the spectrum there by saying that he worked for both of them. But, that ignored a lot that he just didn't talk about because the auto industry was exciting and seemed like that's what people wanted to hear about. Mm. But, for instance, he did work for the American Arithmometer Company, which eventually became the Burroughs Adding Machine Company, and that was a huge venture. But people weren't as excited about adding machines as they were about automobiles. So he focused on that, and then a lot of his details were just sloppy. Like, he'd talk about his early partnerships, and he'd say that those were pretty much failures. As I dug into them, actually, they did pretty well.
Was he humble to the point of self-deprecation?
Extremely so.
He didn't necessarily have to be boastful, but he seemed to shy away from promoting himself. And I guess I'm wondering why.
Well, I think to a degree he was embarrassed by how successful he became. It's something that he didn't necessarily expect or pursued. It just happened.
Returning to the Belle Isle Aquarium, the place where we started, a building that, of course, Albert Kahn designed, what do you think is the importance of beautiful buildings besides something nice to look at? What I'm wondering is buildings that are infrastructurally sound but also aesthetically pretty. I'm wondering how you think these buildings change people and honestly the way we interact with one another in them, if at all.
As much as we fought to keep the Belle Isle Aquarium from closing, the fact that it closed was probably the best thing that happened to it because it was neglected. It had deteriorated. The roof was close to falling in, and people just really didn't care, with the exception of this handful of volunteers. Once we reopened it, people were coming in. I mean, there were times it was reopened during the period when it was closed, where people were just coming in to look at the architecture. And then once we had it reopened, we were just scraping by with like 8 tanks operating. They were coming in to relive the experience a lot of times, but in other cases, they were like bringing their children and grandchildren in to show them the building. So there is value.
Do you think it opens people's minds? Like, how does it change the way they interacted with each other? What does it do, I guess, for them?
Well, hopefully it brings us together as a community. When we have a place to gather like the Belle Isle Aquarium and Horticultural Building, that's a shared experience, and that's something enriching.
Chris Meister is the author of the new book, Albert Kahn's Daylight. He spoke with Sam Corey. Today, we're mourning the loss of Ismail Ahmed. Ismail was a champion of economic and racial justice, diversity, and community organizing. He was a co-founder of Dearborn Social Services Organization Access, which he led for 36 years and helped grow to be the largest organization of its kind in the U.S. He also helped found the Arab American National Museum in Dearborn. He was appointed to lead Michigan's Department of Human Services by Governor Jennifer Granholm, a role in which he was focused squarely on fighting poverty in the state. He would later work in the administration of U of M Dearborn and co-found the Concert of Colors. Ismail also hosted world music programs Radio Free Earth and This Island Earth on WDET. Ismail's work touched millions of lives in Michigan and beyond. If you have a memory of Ismail you'd like to share, we invite you to leave a voice message on the WDET mobile app. Tap the open mic button on the bottom right corner of the screen, or write your memory in an email to WDETdigital@WDET.org. One more time, it's WDETdigital@WDET.org. We'll continue to honor Ismail's life and legacy this week on WDET, and a memory you share may be included on air or online. If you ever want to go back and listen to a conversation you heard on the Metro or share it with a friend, every single conversation we have on the Metro, it is available on the Metro's podcast. Look on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can follow, subscribe, and leave us a rating or a review because it really, really goes a long way. As well, you can find all of the conversations you hear, WDET.org/Metro. So you can go to multiple places to listen to the Metro and all of the segments we've had thus far. The Metro is produced by Sam Corey, Carrie Jr. II, Robin Vincent, and me, Tia Graham. Our engineer is Nate Bender, music done by Sam Bobian, and our senior producer is David Lyons. The Metro is a production of WDET, a listener-supported service of Wayne State University. And this is WDET-FM, Detroit Public Radio, your connection to news, music, and conversation. You all have a great week and happy Black History Month.